If you're someone that's ever considered buying a home, or you're someone that's wanting to buy a home and you ever just felt like it was never gonna happen, you're gonna be renting for absolutely forever, it's too far out of reach, things are too expensive, today's video is to give you a little bit of inspiration to let you know that you're not the only one that feels like that, but there's also some light at the end of the tunnel. I filmed a video previously about my own experience owning real estate. Now, I've been in real estate, selling real estate since 2007, a long time, helping hundreds and hundreds of people either buy or sell their homes all over the Lower Mainland. But it's my own journey that I wanted to share today because I think my story is going to be very similar to not only the way that you may be feeling right now about getting into the real estate market, but there's going to be many people that will also be able to relate with this story as I tell it because they have had similar experiences in getting their own properties and their own individual real estate journeys. What I hope that you get from this video of me interviewing myself is some takeaways. And look, this video is not here to preach. It's not here to preach the values of home ownership necessarily, but it is here to hopefully give you some ideas to consider and to ponder that are going to help you maybe attain the goals that you're looking to do in terms of home ownership. It is possible. You can own a home, whether it's in the city of Surrey or anywhere in British Columbia. And I'm going to give you some pointers at the end or some things to consider at the end that maybe you just need a little bit of a perspective check. So anyways, without further ado, I'm going to get into my story of buying my first home. I'm going to let you know a little bit about what it did for me and my family. And then I'll see you at the end of the video back here and we'll talk a little bit about some of the takeaways that I hope you will take away and hopefully they can improve your life as well. If that sounds good, let's jump into it. Hey, it's Darren here. If you're thinking of moving to Surrey, White Rock, or any of the surrounding suburbs, subscribe below so you can be the first to learn about the market and the areas. And like so many others, we've helped in the process of buying or selling a home. If you need help in the process, whether it's today or 6 months from now, use the link in the description to book a time to speak with me. We'll help you make sure that your move is the absolute best that it could ever be. So my home buying journey started off like probably so many of yours watching this video. I'd never owned anything that expensive in my life. It was scary, owning a home can be scary, from the amount of money that it costs to buy a home. You work so hard to build up all these life savings and, you just kind of see it go into a home. Obviously the market is always, a topic of conversation, especially in the Lower Mainland. And you can be unsure, it's a big life decision and you're kind of thinking, geez, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choice? So I was no different than many people in that regard. I had a good job at the time. My background was actually in restaurant management. So I started off at McDonald's actually when I was younger. I worked at McDonald's and worked my way all the way up to first assistant manager. So for those that are watching and don't know what that is, that's kind of the second in command at whatever McDonald's location you might be at. And this was the old one in White Rock, but saving for a home, that job just wasn't going to get it done. Homes were expensive. And I know, anybody watching this today, they're saying, well, now homes are really expensive. This was the case before. I mean, there's lots of articles in the Lower Mainland and Vancouver where you can go back and see people always complaining about the prices of homes and whatnot. To put this in perspective a little bit, when I was working at McDonald's, minimum wage was $6. Now it's $15 or $16, something like that. So this was obviously a long time ago, but I needed more money to be able to come up with this down payment for this home. So at the time, I was also delivering pizza at night for a really great place called Ocean Park Pizza and Steakhouse, which is now the Ocean Village Pub in Ocean Park. It was so working 2 jobs. I was working anywhere between 60 to 70 hours per week just to save up this down payment amount. Fast forward, I ended up working at a place called Cactus Club, where I was originally supposed to come on in the management position, but they wanted to kind of bring me up from the beginning or from the bottom. So started there, and that's actually when I made the decision after I'd left McDonald's and doing the pizza thing, being at Cactus Club, that I was going to get into real estate. So I had been in real estate for a little bit of time. I had just kind of gotten into it, and I was kind of working nights and evenings and, any day shifts that I could, and kind of doing real estate in between. But the goal, again, was to save up this money so I could buy my very first home. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I was pretty lucky, because at this time I was about 26 years old and I was still living at home with my parents. And I know that's not something that a lot of people have the luxury of being able to do, but I was fortunate enough that it allowed me to kind of save money a little bit quicker than if I had been paying rent or whatnot. But I was looking for something, and at the time I was able to scrape together roughly about $40,000, which the prices of homes at that time, I was able to get very, very entry-level properties in some different markets in the Lower Mainland, kind of in around Surrey and whatnot. But generally speaking, that allowed me to spend, I didn't have to put down a full 10%, but that allowed me to spend anywhere maybe between $400,000 to $450,000 for my first house. And, I don't want to make anybody think that $400,000 or $450,000 at that time bought you a really nice house, because it didn't. The house that I ended up finally settling on, they were asking about $425,000 for it. It was about as entry level as you can get. It was in a neighborhood that was not my favorite. It was a neighborhood where I was actually quite visibly a minority in that neighborhood, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But it was a neighborhood that I traditionally wouldn't have kind of appealed to me in the beginning. It was a neighborhood that where the quality of how people took care of their properties didn't really align with the values that I had seen growing up from the areas where I grew up, and how my parents took care of their home and whatnot. So I found this home, and it was livable, but it was dated. And being a really silly 26-year-old at the time, my biggest focus was getting a home regardless of what I was getting myself into. I wanted a big space. I kind of thought that I was going to have all these massive parties, and my life of my 20s was never going to change. I was going to continue into that. So I wanted as much space as I could possibly afford, while sacrificing all these things that would likely need to come up in this home. And sure enough, that was the case. So I had this home where there was tons of work to do in a neighborhood that I didn't necessarily love. But it was about getting into the market at that time. So I bought it. I moved forward with it to help pay the bills, because mortgage rates were a little bit less expensive than they were today at the time of filming this. But to pay the bills, I had to move a roommate in. At this point in my career, I was in real estate as well. And the real estate market can be volatile. You could have a sale or several sales a month, or you could have none. And at that time, I certainly didn't have the career in real estate that I have today. So every dollar really counted. I had to be very, very careful with my money. I had to be very careful with what I was doing to the home to make sure if I did decide to upgrade the home in any way, it would really add to the value and the potential of the home. And this home had just about everything wrong with it that it could. It was a few years away from needing a new roof. The furnace was done. It had original windows on it. As I said earlier, it was livable, but certainly nothing to get excited about. I mean, it was incredibly dated inside. Everything was kind of due to be done, right from the top to bottom of this particular property. But I didn't want to give up on what I really want and what the kind of the long-term vision of what my plans were. I wanted to get into the market, because having that home would open up doors for me in the future, doors that I just wouldn't get through generally renting a property and whatnot. So during the time of owning this place, it was difficult. We had the roommate. I was working about 60 to 70 hours per week in the restaurant industry, and doing real estate on the side, kind of moonlighting in the real estate industry. But every penny I really went into the home. I sacrificed a lot of probably friendships. I sacrificed probably a lot of time with the people I care about to be able to work and to be able to not only own this home, but also to be able to put the money back into the home, and ideally one day kind of improve it beyond what it was that it was when I got into it. So I was still able to live my life. Don't get me wrong. I was still able to go out once in a while, but it was a big sacrifice for me at the time. I was a very social person. Love to get out, love to see my friends. That was like the thing that my whole world revolved around, especially being in your mid-20s, as you can imagine. And so it was a big sacrifice for me. But piece by piece, I started to kind of put this home together. and bring it into more of a standard that I thought was appropriate, just for the type of home that I wanted, what I really kind of saw in my head here. So not only did I try and do what I could do myself, you know, I would go into, you know, paint the home. Actually, one time I painted, not one time, this happened. I painted the entirety of the outside of the house all by myself. I'm talking like I rented a boom lift. I had like, I don't remember how many, probably like 6 huge buckets of paint. I rented paint sprayers. I taped off the outside of the house and the windows and that sort of thing. And I did a mediocre job. I wouldn't say it was terrible, but it certainly wasn't professional quality. But I went and painted this whole house myself, and that ended up saving me maybe about $6,000 at the time. I learned how to do flooring, so I could buy flooring to upgrade the really thin, junky, old laminate that was in there, and put it in myself and replace it with some really nice higher quality stuff that really helped the house look good. I of course painted the rooms and whatnot, traded favors with friends who were in the trade, so they would come over and maybe help me, update a hot water tank or something like that. And in turn, I would maybe try and help them do something around their home, or maybe, something with real estate services, or, whatever I could do. So everything I could do to this place, I worked on. And one of the cool experiences of going through that, especially in my mid 20s and into my early 30s, is this home started to transform. It started to become a place that I was proud of. I ended up doing the boring stuff, like the roof. That was a huge bill. The windows, that was a huge bill. We did the furnace, but we also started doing the stuff that really made the house come alive. We started to make it my own. We talked about the floors and the paint. We did a bathroom, and then we did another bathroom. And then one day that turned into doing the kitchen. And before you know it, you're kind of looking at this home that you had bought, and it was completely different. And, we were taking good care of it, and it was, clean. And during that time, it wasn't just me anymore. It started out with just me and then my roommate, of course, but my roommate moved out. We all grew up a little bit, and then I got a dog, and then I got a girlfriend and a dog. And then that girlfriend turned into a wife, who turned into having another dog. So now there's 2 dogs and a wife in the home. And as what happens in life, the wife turned, she didn't turn into a baby. We made a baby together. So we started a family in this home, which was obviously really special. And we added my son, who, I'm very lucky to be a father and whatnot. And we've now got a daughter as well. She wasn't born in that home, but she almost was. It came close to that. But anyways, we started a family, and we started to realize that the home that I had bought when I was 26 just didn't really fit our lifestyle anymore. The location didn't necessarily work for us. We wanted a little bit more out of the neighborhood and the community we were looking for. So we decided to up and move and put the home for sale. It just no longer worked for our lives and our ambitions, and that's okay. So we ended up selling it. And I got to say that it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. It gave me financial, not freedom, because I'm not financially free, but it increased my financial wealth, my wealth. Am I saying that right? It increased my net worth, maybe. Obviously incredibly. I'm one of those lucky people that was able to benefit from the market going up. I bought my first house in 2010, as an example. 2024, I've been in the current home where I'm filming this video right now for about 4 years this August. So it helped me gain a lot of wealth, but that's wealth that I wouldn't have had I continued to rent. It also gave me a sense of security, a place for my family to call home, gave me a ton of experiences that I would never trade in for anything. It kind of where my family grew and is the story of where my family is today. So, buying my first home was very, very special to me. And I'm so proud that I was able to do that. I was proud that I was able to work hard to save and to find a home like the one I did. Because it served me well. So that's my story of buying my first place. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But that is my real experience of buying my very first property. And I'm only on my second home. I mean, I've helped lots of people buy and sell properties, but personally I'm only on my second property. But hopefully there were some takeaways there that you can take away from that video and put towards your own personal situation. One thing I didn't mention in there, I did mention that I bought a home in an area that I didn't love. It wasn't my first choice. It was an area that I was reluctant to buy in. What I didn't tell you, other than that, and that the house was completely beat up, the house was actually a previous marijuana grow operation as well. Like, this is a house that had like a stop work order on it and was locked up by the city because the city caught people growing marijuana in the house. That had a huge stigma to this property, something that affected the value of it. But I saw it as an opportunity. It allowed me to get the type of home that was a little bit closer to what I wanted, and it just made it a little bit less expensive. So, I mean, this home had all sorts of issues kind of going on with it, but I didn't let that deter me. I didn't let that stop me from not only trying to get what I wanted, but I also didn't let that keep me back from making a decision that I thought was going to be right for me long term. One of the other takeaways I thought was important about that is I had what I had. I had to work 2 jobs to be able to come up with the money to afford that property. And that's not a popular thing right now. I feel sometimes in our society that working hard and working extra hours is almost frowned upon because there should be a hack or there should be an easy way to get around that. And, call it whatever it was, but maybe I just wasn't smart enough to figure that out. But I was one person who had to work 60, 70 hours per week to be able to come up with my down payment and also just generally be able to, afford the house. I didn't blame the government for my situation. I didn't blame interest rates. I didn't blame my personal circumstances. I committed to what I wanted to do and I found a way to do it. I had meager earnings at the time through both the jobs that I had, but I worked hard and I committed to doing it. So I did it. I didn't live downtown Vancouver. That would have been a huge preference of mine at the time to be where all my friends were. All my friends were downtown renting. But I made a decision to get into the market, and I didn't go to downtown because I couldn't afford it. So I didn't stomp my feet and complain that I couldn't afford a house in downtown Vancouver. I just simply bought a house where I could afford, in an area that I could afford. I share that because I feel sometimes fully recognizing that it's difficult to buy a home. Well, it's always been difficult to buy a home, and we all want certain things out of a property, including the location of where that property is, but you have to work within your budget. Nothing is going to get handed to you in this life, and you can either complain and pout about it, or you can make something happen for yourself, which is, what I chose to do. Another important takeaway from that is just generally that I did it. I wouldn't be in the house that I am today if I hadn't have bought that home over 14 years ago now. I wouldn't have had something to trade. I wouldn't have had something to improve. It took me 10 years to bring this house up, and, to a state where I was happy with it. And spent lots of my money from, my meager incomes to do that. But not only that, over those 10 years, I was fortunate that the equity in the property grew. And even if the market prices didn't go up, it's still a forced savings plan. I had to put money towards that mortgage. So over the 10 years that I was there, my mortgage amount was paid down by 10 years. That means at the time, if I could only do a 25-year mortgage, I only had 15 years left on that mortgage. So not only was I paying that down and building equity and having this forced savings plan in this property, but I was also in the market. So as the market values went up, when I wanted to improve my living circumstances, I had my family now, I wanted a different property in a different neighborhood, that sort of thing. I had something to trade. I had something to trade for a little bit closer to that dream property that I really wanted. And had I have not purchased that property in 2010, maybe I never would have a house. house. Maybe I would be, in a much different situation than I am now. Maybe I wouldn't even own property altogether. Maybe I wouldn't even be in real estate altogether. Who knows, but getting into the market was one of the most important things I think that I could have had at the time, because when I did go and sell, I was able to use that forced savings plan, that forced equity through paying the mortgage for that last 10 years, and use that to trade up to, a better property in a nicer neighborhood, the same neighborhood that I call home today. So I was just, I hope a takeaway from that is that you can do it. You might think that you can't get a property today. You might think that homes are all too expensive, and you get lost in the media hype and the news, and we want to blame somebody and we want to point fingers at people. But I'm here to tell you, you can do it. I bought my first home making just over minimum wage at McDonald's, guys. This is where I saved my money, to be able to do this. And I worked a second job to make sure that I had a little bit more on top. If that's not starting from as close to the bottom as you can get, I don't really know what is. And nothing against the companies that hired me at the time. That's just what they paid, right? I'm a big believer in, the value you bring to the marketplace is what the marketplace will give you. So you might not think you can't afford it today. Well, the home that I bought for just over $400,000. Here's the crazy thing. Now, you might not be able to buy a house today, but I couldn't buy a mansion back in 2010 for what I had. I bought a really beat up house in a neighborhood that I didn't love. You can still buy property today for $400,000. It's just the type of property that is the question on the table, and whether you're willing to put in the time and have something, that you believe in, and have something that you're willing to trade after a few years, after you're able to get into the market and start building some of that equity, and maybe even improving the property if you have the opportunity to do so. But to give you an idea, in Surrey, I just got an email earlier today about a new 1-bedroom condominium, about 550 square feet, coming to the market in the city of Surrey. Now there's GST on top of that, so call it $575. But you can buy a brand new 1-bedroom condominium in the city of Surrey today for about $475,000. That's pretty incredible. It's still affordable. It's just what your perspective of what that type of home looks like that may need to be shifted. To give you an idea, right now, I looked before I started making this video, there's about 174 places in Surrey. These are apartments that are available in Surrey for under $450,000. You can still get into the market for reasonable numbers, even if you're having trouble with not making maybe as much money as you want in your job. It is still something that is fully doable. And you know what? In the long term, I had my goal in mind. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I had to do because it wasn't short-term thinking. It wasn't, this is where I'm going to be for a year. It was, this is going to be my 10-year plan, or maybe it was my 15-year plan or whatever that was. But what I certainly knew without a doubt is that renting was throwing away my money. It was paying somebody else's mortgage. It was doing nothing for my financial future, the wealth of my future self. And I was just giving that to somebody else and helping them, be an owner somewhere else. So by having that long-term goal in mind, it totally changed my life. So hopefully some of these takeaways are takeaways that you can apply to your own situation. And I've got a few things for you that are going to be highly valuable to anybody that needs to hear these sorts of things. But before I share those with you, I want two things out of you, or one thing. Well, no, two things. I want you to consider subscribing to the channel. This channel is all about White Rock, BC, Surrey, BC, and anything going on in the crazy, wild world of British Columbia real estate. There's always lots to talk about. They give us lots. But I want you to comment on this video. There's two types of people watching this video. Actually, there's three. The first type of person watching this video is the person who's going to get inspired by the message. They're going to say, I got a little bit of a perspective change watching this, and I got a little bit of, was able to kind of clear my thoughts a little bit and apply some of these stories and some of these learning lessons to my own situation. And home ownership is doable for me. It is something out there that I can do. And if you're that person, hang around here. But I also want you to comment below and let me know if any of this resonates with you. The second type of person that is going to comment on this video is somebody whose story is so similar to this, that they've gone through the similar situation, and buying their first home was hard. They didn't get the home that they wanted. They didn't get the neighborhood that they necessarily wanted. They had to make sacrifices. It was challenging, but they did it anyway. And it likely has paid off in the long run. I want you to comment as well and let me know if you can relate to this story and if you've got a similar story like that you'd like to share in the comments. And the third type of person that's going to comment on this video is the person who just doesn't get it. And the person who just doesn't get it is probably going to be the same person who never gets it. They want to blame everybody else. They want to point fingers at everybody else. It's somebody else's fault, somebody else's problem. I can't get what I want in the area that I want because I can't afford it, etc. And that's okay too. We're not going to change everybody's minds with this video, but I want you to leave your comment too. Everybody's welcome on this channel. So, let me know your thoughts if I'm completely off base here as well. But I think where I want to take all this with you now is you've commented, you've subscribed to the channel. If you are somebody in that first boat, somebody who is inspired and thinks, geez, this is something that I can do. This is something for me. We've got two things coming up. Number one, right now we're giving away free access to our BC Home Buyers course. This is an online course that we developed to help people all across British Columbia buy their first home, do it right, do it in style, avoid all of the pitfalls that happen to so many home buyers out there. It's over 3 hours of video content, PDF downloads, and questionnaires, all aimed at helping you do it right the first time. We're giving away 20 free subscriptions to that, so be sure to check out the description below to get access, and when the 20 are gone, they're gone. So, get there as quick as you can. The second thing that I want to let you know is coming up next is the exact presentation that we give to people who are considering buying a home. This is about 45 minutes to an hour long, but this is everything we want people to know who are completely green to the process, what they need to know about buying a home. And let me finish with this. Guys, it's doable. It's something that you can do if you choose to do it. I wish you all a ton of luck that you're able to get a property for yourself. I hope your circumstances allow it. And if they don't, hopefully you can change your circumstances to eventually have that happen for you. But nonetheless, I want to thank you for sharing this journey with me, sharing my story with me. And because you subscribed, we'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks again, guys. Cheers.